Senusret III, the god who marched. Now, the name Senusret itself means man of the goddess Wosret, but history would not simply remember him as a servant for the divine. He would become divine. He is one of Kemet's most powerful warrior kings, and he was more than just a ruler. He was seen as a force of nature. Now, he is born into the very mighty 12th dynasty during the Middle Kingdom's Golden Age, and Senusret III reigned from approximately 1878 to 1839 BCE. His rule marked the height of centralized power in ancient Kemet, and this was a time when the Nswt was not just a king, but he was the living embodiment of Ma'at, divine order. And Senusret enforced Ma'at with fire and steel. Now, the southern frontier had always been unstable, and this is Nubia. Rich in gold, lots of warriors, and sacred resources, this was a gateway to both major threat and an opportunity. So while others tolerated resistance, Senusret crushed it. He launched brutal and precise campaigns deep into Nubian territory, expanding Kemet's reach all the way to the Third Cataract. But more than a conqueror, he was an architect of domination, fortifying the region with massive stone strongholds at Simma as well as Buhan. And these fortresses were not just military outposts. These were temples of authority. They were carved into enemy soil. Now, conquest alone would not make him a god, but it's what came later that sealed his legend. Now, in Nubia, which is his ancestral home, he was not just feared, he was worshipped. Long after his death, the people who he once subdued built shrines to him, left offerings in his name, and invoked his spirit like that of a guardian. But this wasn't just a response to military power. This was something older, this was something deeper. This is because Nubia came before Kemet, and the oldest traditions of divine kingship, the sacred regala, and the oldest traditions of divine kingship, of sacred regala, of temple architecture, they all flowed from Nubia's earliest kingdoms like Ta-Seti. Kemet did not conquer Nubia, it returned, and Senusret III, warrior of Ma'at, born in the Nile Valley, may have been seen not as a foreign ruler but as a homegrown embodiment of that ancestral power. So in the eyes of some Nubians, he wasn't just an invader, he was the manifestation of the gods born from their own soil. He returned with weapons, temples, and a divine mandate. His face became part of the land, his image carved into cliffside stone, his essence merged into the spiritual realm. Not a god of Kemet alone, but the entire Nile cosmology. He bridged the roles of Horus the king, Montu the warrior, and Osiris the immortal. In war, he was Montu, incarnate. In rule, he was Heru, enthroned. In memory, he was Osiris, risen. Even his statues tell a story. They're not young or idealized God, but someone who was a wary titan, who was bearing the burden of kingship that this was placed upon him. He was a mortal vessel carved to carry out this divine legacy. And later in the suits, Tutmosis III, Seti I, and Ramses II would all walk in his footsteps. But they walk in the shadow of a god who had already marched, already conquered, and become a legend. Senusret was no mere Nswt. He was the storm on the southern horizon. He was the god who marched. He was the judgment of Ma'at wrapped in human flesh.